In this project we're going to take a look at some lens corrections. Okay, I'm in Adobe Camera Raw. I'm going to come over to the lens correction panel. Okay, we'll start with the profile. I'm going to click on the Enable Lens Profile Corrections, and this picks up the Nikon lens. It's a 12-24 lens on this crop sensor camera that we've been using. Okay, that'll make sure that there's no barrel distortion or pincushion distortion, and also will correct some vignetting issues that the lens might have. We can then proceed to the Color tab and choose the Remove Chromatic Aberration checkbox. This is very important when we're using wide-angle lenses, as the chromatic aberration is often quite significant in the corner of the images at high contrast edges. Let's just we'll zoom in on the corner so you can see perhaps this is obviously with the chromatic aberration checked, but if we uncheck that remove chromatic aberration, you'll see this dark purple or blue line coming down this edge near now. So removing chromatic aberration, always recommended when using wide angle lenses. I'll just fit in view, Command 0 on a Mac or Control 0 on a PC. And we're now going to come up to the Manual tab. Now this is a feature called Upright. Now it gets it right most of the time, but occasionally it will make mistakes. I'm just going to zero out some of the controls that I've got running here. Okay, and then we'll click on the A in order to see what Photoshop makes of this image. Now because there's so many unusual angles inside of this image, the upright has actually failed to work in this instance. It gets it right most of the time, but this is one of those instances where we're going to need to come in and do some manual corrections. Okay, so I'm going to come in with the vertical slider here, and in order to see when we've got alignment, I'm going to click on the Show Grid. Okay, and as we can see, these verticals are leaning out, and so I'm just going to grab that vertical slider, and we can pull it in either direction in order to align those verticals with the grid that we can see there. Just pulling it a little bit more, and we're about right at plus 15 or so. Okay, we also have the option, if the image is slightly crooked, is to rotate the image using the rotate here. Okay. Now also when we're scaling some of these images and correcting converging verticals, I'll just double click to zero that, is we can make images that look slightly squat or too squashed in appearance, and we have this aspect ratio now where we can make the image either fatter or slightly taller. I'm going to give it a slightly plus value here in order to return the normal appearance of the height of these structures here. Okay, and now that I've finished with the grid, I'm just going to click off that Show Grid. Now we've got this transparency that's appearing around the image as it's being corrected, and we could scale that out. Alternatively, we can crop in. Now if we're using the crop tool and we want to crop away that transparency, we need to check the Constrain to Image option here, which is already checked for me here. Okay, and then it's a simple matter of coming in, clicking and dragging in order to make a selection. It doesn't really matter if I make some selection of that transparency area, because it'll snap back down to the image area, as you can see there. Okay, I'm just going to pull that in slightly and so that I can select the bottom of the image there. I'm going to crop in a little bit more at the top just for a more pleasing composition there. And then I'll click on the Hand or Zoom tool in order to apply that crop. And as we can see now, we've made some significant improvements using the Lens Corrections panel. I'm just going to open this as an object. Here I've got the Open Object button selected. Hold down the Shift key if your button is saying Open Image, or make a modification in the workflow options by checking the Open in Photoshop as Smart Objects, which is the way we can work completely non-destructively. Okay, so I'll select OK, and then I'll choose the Open Object button, which will take this into the main editing space of Photoshop. I'll just zoom in to fit on screen there. If we want our horizontals and verticals to be absolutely straight, then we should try coming up to the Filter menu and choosing the Adaptive Wide Angle filter. Now I'm just going to zoom out. That's Command minus or Control minus on a PC, just so we can see some more of the canvas area. And I'm also going to use the Scale button just so we can see the perimeters of this image. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try and make some corrections. We're going to use the tool in the top left hand corner called the constrain tool. I've clicked to check that, and then we're going to place our cursor on an area which will have a straight horizontal line. Now we're going to use this detail tab to help us find the precise points. So I'm just going to come over, and using that detail tab I've located the top left hand corner, and then I'm dragging over to the corresponding point on the right side. If I hold down the shift key, this will constrain this to an absolute horizontal, and then just letting go of the mouse button, that will straighten that out. I'm just going to extend these points. I'm going to hold down the shift key and then pull those out to the outside of the image area. Okay, this will ensure that the image is straightened all the way to the canvas area. We're going to do the same in the bottom corner here. Again, finding a point on that lower vertical there, and then pulling around to the corresponding point on the right side of the image. Again, holding down the shift key will constrain that to an absolute horizontal. Again, holding down the shift key as we extend those to the corners of the canvas area. And now we have those horizontals corrected. We can also continue to add horizontals, because at the moment the corrections are starting to pull away as we move outside of those areas. So I'm going to add another line, okay, up to the top of this image, okay, and also one down in the lower portion of that image, like so. Okay, so that's fully corrected. Now we'll turn our attention onto the verticals. Okay, I'm going to again use that detail tab to try and find the edge of that line, and then click and drag down onto that edge in the lower portion. Okay, again using the detail tab to find alignment, holding down the shift key for a perfect vertical, and that makes that straight. Again, holding down the shift key, we can extend those to the canvas edge of the canvas in both directions, top and bottom, like so. And we'll add one now on the right hand side, again using that detail tab to find alignment, holding down the shift key for perfect verticals, and just a little bit over onto the right, and then let go of the mouse button. Okay, holding down the shift key still, and we extend those to the edge of the canvas. And we can now add a few more verticals onto the sides of the images, so we have correction all the way to the edge of the canvas there. Okay, now we have full correction, and the way to get rid of the transparency is now just to scale up, like so. If at any time we don't want absolute verticals, we can just click on any of these corresponding lines, and then if you move your cursor over the pin, we can see that we can actually angle that in. I'll just drag it slightly for a 1 degree lean in, and also on the corresponding side on the other side we'll just lean that in approximately 1 degree for a match on the other side. Okay, because sometimes images look a little bit better if we have a small amount of converging verticals, and again we've got a little bit of transparency creeping in, so I'll just scale that up by another % or so. Okay, and now we can select OK. This adaptive wide angle, because we open the image as a smart object, will be applied as a smart filter. So if we want to go back in and make any corrections at any time in the future, it's just a simple matter of just double clicking the adaptive wide angle option, and in we go, and we can perfect some of those angles if we want to, and I'll just cancel that out. Okay, so quite quickly we can see we can make some very quick and rough adjustments inside of the Adobe Camera Raw space, and we can also make some very precise adjustments inside of the main editing space of Photoshop using the adaptive wide angle filter.